and Suzanne Desjardin, who are coming over right now.
Oh, thank you. Do you want to click? Good afternoon, everyone. We wanted to give you a quick update on where we're at with our student affairs reorganization. So approximately a year ago, the 4 Ps at the time looked at what student affairs, I guess the current state of student affairs at the time, where improvements needed to be made, and what changes needed to be made. And so with that, they actually moved to, well, let me back up just a second. So at the time, what we had is we actually had 4 individuals at the vice president level that had oversight or responsibility for oversight for different areas under student affairs. Part of the outcome of that is that some areas were working very effectively and others were not. And so part of what they reviewed as they benchmarked, as they looked at other colleges, was looking at having one vision and one view. And so with that, that's kind of how we ended up with the structure that we have now. So I am the VP over Student Affairs, and the rest of the leadership team, we actually have Suzanne Desjardin as Dean of Students, David Arellano as Dean of Enrollment Management. We also have, I think they stepped out for a minute, we also have Aubrey Conover, who is Campus Vice President and Director of Student Affairs up at Northwest. At East Campus, we have Ted Rausch, who is Campus Vice President and Director of Student Affairs. And then at Desert Vista, we have Edgar Soto, who is Campus Vice President and Director of Student Affairs. And so as we've gone through this restructure, where we're at right now is actually at the Student Services Center level, or the operational level. And so what you will find at every single campus is you will find a student affairs supervisor. And so we'll be mailing information out to everyone on who these individuals are at each of the campuses, but they are responsible for the operations in the Student Services Center. The 3 of us meet with them on a bi-weekly basis to touch base, find out about what issues are happening, what are good things that are happening, things that need attention, things that need improvement. Next to that, we also have program developers. The program developers actually help develop where we need specific programs. So for example, first year experience is one of them. We have another program developer working with our athletes, and then the other one is working on transfer. So those are at downtown campus and West Campus. All campuses do have counselors. Our counselors work with all of our students. We're also currently looking at their work and how we can best support students, because part of the goal of the restructure is to completely focus on student success. Everything that we are doing is to help the student be successful. So we also have program advisors. Many of the deans already have experience working with the program advisors because they work with your division, they work with your faculty. That particular group, or that project that we initiated with them, has actually proven to be very successful because it has helped to increase retention rates as well as engagement with the students, helping to form a relationship with the students as well. And then a brand new position, just like the student affairs supervisor, is the enrollment and advising liaison. So this individual will actually be the liaison that will be overseeing the enrollment process and be working with all of the other departments at the college in case a student is dealing with any types of challenges, barriers, anything like that. They will be overseeing the process. And David will be talking a little bit more about enrollment advising with Salesforce, so I'm not going to go into that too much into detail at this point. And then we also have our advanced specialists, and our technicians. These particular positions will be focused on the entire enrollment process for the students. So through Salesforce, once a student completes an application, they will be assigned to an enrollment advisor, which will be one of the 3 folks at the bottom of the chart. Those individuals will then help them through all of the enrollment processes. If there are questions with financial aid, if the student is having issues with residency, any of those pieces, the enrollment advisors will help them with that piece. One of the positive things is that they will have caseloads. Each one of the enrollment advisors will have caseloads, and we'll be able to go in, pull up reports, look to see how many students have been reached out to, how many students have successfully registered for courses, gone through new student orientation, all of those processes. So it's something that we're very excited about. And so part of the reorganization, as I mentioned, we're completely focused on student success. And so with that, our model is having the student and the student experience at the center. Pima Connection will actually enable us to have the student within the system, have all of these individuals in Pima Connection so that they can support the student, easily communicate with the instructor, communicate with the student, answer any questions. And so it's something that we are actually very excited about because we do feel that it's going to make a positive impact on enrollment. The other, strategy that we're planning to also implement is taking an asset or a strength-based approach to working with students, because although a lot of our students are first-generation students, we know that they have overcome challenges in either personal life, in school, at work, and we want to help them identify those pieces so that when they do get to us, they know that they can do this, and it's something that we're going to help guide them, we're going to help support them, because the premise of all of this is to help them build a relationship with someone at the college, which we know is key to helping students be successful, and then also to help create that sense of belonging, because we know we want them to feel like they belong, they're part of the college, and they should be here. We're going to help them meet that goal.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Arellano. I'm the Dean of Enrollment Management. Seems like about a month and a half ago, we were all here in the same room for the Enrollment Management Task Force, so there was a majority of all the people here that participated in that, which I'll briefly talk about, and I'll just go ahead and start with that. At this point in time, we've gone ahead and summarized all of the recommendations from the Enrollment Management Task Force. In there, the final report is currently being added to our intranet site. On the intranet site, you'll find the task force charter, all of our resources and notes and meeting and agenda updates throughout that entire process. Please view the final report. Some of those items I'm going to be talking about some of those items from the task force are also included in some of the projects and initiatives we're currently working on. And as I go into those, when we were posed the question, what challenges have you faced and what have you done to succeed or overcome those? And right now we all know about the challenges with enrollment, whether they're external or internal, but there's many great things that we are doing in the face of those challenges. And I really want to just highlight some of those projects and initiatives. And like Irene was talking about, the enrollment advising, that's something where when we look back at our white paper, to barriers to success or barriers to enrollment, information in that document talks about the struggles students experience as they apply to the college and try to get registered. So whether it's placements, multiple measures, I know Jeff talked about that earlier, finding classes, scheduling, you name it, those are the barriers that students are facing. So with this group of enrollment advisors and liaisons, they're going to be the frontline reps that will help guide students through that process. I know Michael also talked about it with the Pearson Project, so we also know that those challenges exist for our distance learners, and as we go forward with any future online projects, whether they be with the online education area or workforce, we know we need to increase our wraparound support and how we structure our support services for our students in any method or modality that they're going to come to PMO. And so right now we're working on getting that process up to date. We're looking at various student types and checklists. So one thing I'm currently doing is mapping out the variety of different student types we have. So for example, that enrollment advisor is going to be helping a student out with an enrollment checklist, so to say. But with that, it's going to differ if you're brand new to higher ed, if you're a transfer student, if you're a workforce student, if you're an online student, how you're taking your placements. international, you name it. There's a variety of student types we have. And we have to make sure that we're capturing that information and that staff are trained on how to support those students and that students also know what requirements they have. I'll give you a quick example. Yesterday, registration opened up for us and I'm out in the center at downtown campus. And we have some U of A students who are saying, why do I have to submit my transcripts? Well, on our website and through our enrollment process for a transfer student, you do want to submit official transcripts so we can evaluate them and bring those courses in. These students didn't realize they're just guest students. They're here to take a course for transfer, with which we could use an unofficial transcripts to evaluate course prerequisites. And so it's little things like that, those little nuances that we have to make sure as we go through and we develop Salesforce and we develop the training and the process, the business process for our enrollment advisors, that we cover each of those nuances till we can better support our students. And so I just wanted to give you that quick example. We're looking at a spring 2019 rollout for our enrollment advising. It's something that we're currently doing now. Don't want to call it at a grassroots level, but more at a campus-based level without the use of technology. So that's currently ongoing. Several of other items I'm looking at right now, we're doing outreach campaigns. So we want to reach out and nudge students who are currently enrolled this semester to register for spring. It's about 21,000 students that we need to nudge to get their enrollment. So again, enrollment registration opened up yesterday, so we're working on that. We're also, and here's a staggering number, which I do not like to see, but I had data collected from April 2nd all the way to the first day or the day before classes started for the fall. We had over 8,000 students apply to PIMA but not register. 8,000. So just imagine if we could have converted 1,000 and they all enrolled part-time, how much headcount, enrollment, and footsie we could have gained. So again, it's really pivotal that we get our enrollment advising, our Salesforce technology up to speed so then we can capture some of those enrollments. Again, these are students that I'm going to be reaching out to via email and through text messaging. So right now we're working with our third-party service provider. I actually just got off the phone with Blackboard about 30 minutes ago trying to navigate the, let me see if I remember it correctly, the Telephone Consumer Information Act, right? So we don't want to get any FCC compliance issues, so we're trying to navigate how do we reach out to these students via text. And SMS technology is not new, but it's fairly new to PIMA, and it shouldn't be. So those are other things I need to be looking at and incorporating as we move forward. How do we reach out to students? We all know email is not the most effective way. Is SMS foolproof? No, but it's another method we need to be using. It's 2018 and we are not there yet. So that's something we're really, really looking at. And there's a variety of ways we can do that. We could purchase our own technology or platform, or we could use the third-party servicers that we currently have. And that's going to be an option that we're pursuing right now to reach out to the 21,000 and the additional 8,000 students via text messaging. The other great thing we're working on, and we just recently had vendor demos last week and yesterday, is our line management system. And you may ask, well, how does that support enrollment? This strategically supports student access and success, right? And so if we have better mechanisms for students to come into a center and get advising and services, then we're gonna increase enrollment. So one way, or let me go back a little bit, our current platform, Qnami, is obsolete. It hasn't been upgraded since 2010 when it was originally purchased. With that, we're looking at vendors now that incorporate mobile technology where you can sign in from your classroom. You could be sitting in class and maybe it's 15 minutes till the end of it. You could get on the mobile app and sign in for services and walk down to the center. You could do it from home. You could receive text message updates saying, hey, your appointment is within 15 minutes. Do you need more time or do you want to reschedule? So there's a variety of ways we can improve that access and service to our students, and that's what we're currently doing with our line management system. Next steps in that process is we're going to be doing vendor selection, going through the RFP and procurement process, working with IT to develop the timeline for implementation, end user training, and then look at that cutoff, or how do we switch over from the old to new system. And so that's currently in progress, and we're looking at a spring 2019 rollout for that. Next is there are admissions applications. So I want to give, Raj isn't here anymore, but Raj's group, Isaac, oh, Raj is there in the back. Isaac from Enterprise, Michael Tolino, Lisa and her team from Marketing and Recruitment. That group has been meeting weekly to find updates and improvements to our application. Enterprise Group is currently converting our application over to Form Builder RX. What does that mean, right? So right now, or in the past, any application upgrades had to go back to the vendor for the improvements. And they would come back. If we liked it, great, implement. If we didn't, it would go back to the vendor, back and forth, back and forth. Now with Form Builder, Enterprise has the ability to click, drag, and drop and manipulate what the application looks like, make it more user-friendly, remove, if anybody's used the application, remove all those check boxes that say, do you agree to these terms? Should only be once at the end. Right now it's after every section. And so there's a lot of little improvements that we're going to do to make it more intuitive, mobile friendly, but a lot of that is also the type of questions we're going to be asking in that application. Others have talked about areas of interest. Well, we really need to look at that and help students pick the right program of study from the get-go. It can be a little confusing, and so we're currently having Enterprise extract data to see how many times a student has changed their program of study from the application, because our hunch is that we're not setting the student up to pick the right one from the get-go. And so if we can start doing some of those small improvements, we'll increase enrollment, we'll improve service, and a bonus, we'll have better compliance. Next, I want to talk about, oh, let me go back, I'm sorry. It's an ongoing process, but we're looking at spring 2019 for hopefully the complete reboot and reskin. But again, because now we have this Form Builder technology, we can make adjustments on the fly as we see fit. Next, I want to talk about the U of A online partnership. Lee referenced it this morning in terms of about 1,000 students that could come our way. This partnership would help us connect with U of A online and reach out to their inadmissible students. So these students would be applying to U of A into one of their online programs, not make the requirements for whatever reason, GPA, number of credits, et cetera. And what they would do is, because we're working with their transfer and articulation department, is they say, okay, you're trying to go to a U of A online BAS and cybersecurity, right? Let's route you to PIMA so you can get the credits you need and complete one of their CIS degrees or complete one of their transfer degrees. And so that's a partnership we're working on right now. The team visited the U of A online facility, which, if you haven't been, is amazing, and they have amazing infrastructure. And so we're looking at them to see, how can we do this? How can we better partner? And the other thing about that is that we're gonna be able to capture those students and really help them out, whether it's completing an AJAC, and help them transfer and graduate. So it's not only bonus, and it's not only enrollment, but the bonus of increased transfer rates and increased graduation rates from those students. We're currently going through language, whether it's an MOU or IGA. If it's an IGA, we're gonna have to go to board approval and get that approved. And at this point, we're also looking at some of the data and system requirements needed for that partnership. Quickly, I'll just, so that Suzanne has some time, is other enrollment initiatives. We're looking at our deletions outreach. We talked, or I referenced that at our last board meeting. Certificate program list, that I think Nina referenced. Certificates, and maybe Jeff referenced it. Certificates that do not need placements. We have a huge list of that, so we need to market that and get that out. Reverse transfer, that's one of the college's goals, and so we're looking at re-engaging those conversations with the U of A and the other universities. Michael referenced the Pearson Partnership, which has been a great learning experience and endeavor for us. And looking at waitlist phase 2, and Michael's group's been doing a great job on that. All right, thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the things going on in the area under student affairs that I have oversight for. So academic advising and counseling, student life co-curricular, code of conduct, Title IX, those report up through me. I'm going to focus on academic advising, counseling, and the co-curricular programming that we've been doing. So the theme that we were talking about, David, Irene, and I, when we said we were going to come and do our updates is we don't really have clear-cut what was the challenge, where are you now? Because the benefit of us having worked in student affairs the last several years is we were able to come in and hit the ground running and have some continuity with some of the relationships and some of these projects that have been years in the making. So for example, assigned advising, I know Michael Tolino was on the student services program review that we did back in 2012-13. We actually set assigned advising as a goal back in 12-13. We actually implemented it 5 years later last fall, and we've been tweaking it as we've been going along. But it's a perfect example of how long it takes PIMA to catch up to not only to our systems, but to try to take best practices and implement, right? And I think that's a theme, a common theme that we've been discovering as we've been doing the important work and using those best practices and trying to infiltrate. We do run into those systems challenges that continue to be ongoing, and we have a lot of people in this room to thank for the progress we're making. But with assigned advising, something really exciting to talk about is that the faculty advising work group also launched last year. So we now, thanks to Jeff and Nina's leadership with PIMA Connection Snarfish last year with Early Alert, we now have other faculty besides the developmental ed faculty who are using PIMA Connection. We have a new set of faculty in spring that are going to start use PIMA Connection to do their own advising caseloads. And really our goal is to fully implement the faculty advising model by next fall. So that's something that is an ongoing, and we have work to keep doing, but we have some outcomes to definitely report on. We are absolutely seeing success with that. Part of what I've been working with Bruce and Wendy on is the evidence-based culture, and how do we start having people think about the learning that goes on in student affairs, and how do we measure the student affairs outcomes. So we did do that with the assigned advising syllabus. We came up with outlined student learning outcomes. They're on the syllabus themselves. So now we're needing to figure out how to quantify those measures. So some ways that we do that we've been able to do, and we're working with IRB, is can we track back the students that are meeting with the program advisors to demonstrate these students are persisting and being retained at higher rates than students who are not. So yes, we have been able to do that, but again, the goal is to actually have some policies that require students to come see us in advising or to come see a counselor if they're not sure. So those again are some of the things that we're working on, but we are excited to see some of those metrics. Let's see, faculty advising. Okay, so I think I covered all of that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so for co-curricular, we walked into these roles in July, and again, a lot of the work had been going on, but we had people reporting to different people in different places, and we didn't always have a conduit to really say, let's take a bird's eye view as to everything that's going on in student affairs, and let's start pulling together the efforts that we have going on and streamline the goals. So with co-curricular, that's actually what happened is we had a lot of the co-curricular things going on, but we didn't have a template to capture how are we assessing the co-curricular learning, and then where are we going to record all of that learning. So we did form a student affairs work group. We hope to add to it by spring with instructional folks. We've already started partnering with instruction to do co-curricular, and we've been able to come up with a template. I'm working with Wendy, came up with a template that we've already started using for some of our co-curricular events this semester. We're able to put some of the data we collected into the assurance argument report, and then we will be loading that data into eLumen, just like faculty are doing with their courses. So this is a really exciting development for us in student affairs. And again, when we did some benchmarking, we found out that a co-curricular transcript is actually not that uncommon. There's actually schools who have that. So that's one of the goals of the work group, is to figure out, well, how can we have something like that for our students? So it wouldn't just be the things that Student Affairs are doing, but anytime a student participates in something outside of the classroom that either faculty are leading or through the student clubs and organizations they're involved with is actually supporting that trajectory that they are on for academic success and then placement into the workforce, how can we start recording that and give them something tangible like a transcript where all of that is recorded, and it would be kind of a supplement, if you think about it, to a resume a student might prepare. So that's one of our goals that we're working on and figuring that piece out. Counselors are taking the career development piece an extra step forward. Besides the fact that they have the STU courses as part of the pathways, and Brian Stewart has worked with them on the STU piece, they are now focusing on career development workshops, again, to try to target the students that are undecided or who just need to be a little bit more career ready. And they are also part of the PIMA Connection case management model. So they're already getting students who are in liberal arts or undecided. Again, as part of the Pathways goal to try to get those students into college majors or programs within the first semester. And then we have some other areas of student affairs. The first year program has partnered with our career and transfer developer. They've also partnered with our program advisors, with our faculty, with other student affairs personnel, and counselors to host career cafes and to host Popcorn with a Program, again, as a way to showcase some of the ways that students can get involved in these different areas. And again, we are collecting assessments of learning when we hold those events. And last, Ian's area for employer engagement and career services, we've been working with Denise Kingman to bring in employers to actually focus and have targeted recruitment fairs or info sessions, actually connecting students on the fly, on the spot, having counselors and program advisors work with students and employers to engage in a different way than we've done before. So these are some of the excited things we're working on, and no task is ever really done. We just keep moving forward. So any questions for any of us?
One of the things that I would just like to add is, as we stepped into these roles in July, it definitely, required us to go in and look at each area that reports to us, assess what strengths there are within those areas and what areas of opportunity for strengthening as well. And so it's something that we are still in the middle of doing and assessing, but we're also focused on growing, improving services for our students, improving those opportunities for enrollment, the conversion of application to enrollment, partnering, with many of you to make sure that we're working together so that the student experience is something that is seamless. We will also be working with all of our staff in student affairs to also look at customer service and how do we offer, the best customer service so that when an individual reaches out to that student, whether it's face-to-face, via email, phone, Google Hangout, that it's a positive experience for the student, that they are getting consistent information, accurate information, and that they feel that they are being valued and that they are an individual that we want at the college. So we've been working very diligently, definitely have had, some challenges in some of the areas and some of the scope of the work that we need to do, but we also have embraced that, and we welcome the opportunity to move things forward and to really make it the best experience for the student.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
It's about a project that's very near and dear to my heart, the PIMA Connection project. I've heard really good feedback from the program advisors. They appreciate the ability to reach out to all their students and to know who their students are that they're supposed to be working with. But most pleasingly, I've had overwhelming positive feedback from the faculty who are using the early alert component of PIMA Connection. So I want to thank everybody who's worked on that. Irene, you worked with the program advisors, and Jeff worked on the early alert. My question is, what is the timeline to roll in all of our students? We focused on new students, all of our students. So what's the timeline, and what resources do you still need to make that happen?
So one of the things Irene talked about is she showed you a piece of the org chart, right? The piece of the org chart she didn't show you is what we've had to do with student affairs and the reorganization is we've had to repurpose Anytime we have an identified need, we have to find the position by using an empty position. And because we've lost so many positions due to expenditure limitation, what that literally means is when someone on the front line retires or leaves, we actually have to take that position that we need from the front line and put it somewhere else that we have a critical need, like program advisors or a director position, and convert it up. And so that's been one of the things we've been focusing on. At the same time, we're doing all of these things because the HR pieces have been given to the departments to handle. We're doing major recruitments. We've done it, we're at the end of the semester, we will have done more than half a dozen of those recruitments of repurposed positions in trying to build that infrastructure. So to answer your question, our timeline is next fall. In order to do full-scale implementation of Starfish Payment Connection for faculty, we not only need to have the program advisors fully staffed, which we're just a little under 50% of those positions right now, but we need to have the faculty pilot group that's launching in spring to help be the trainers, to train the trainers so that when we roll it out, it's going to roll out in a way that is not disjointed, that is seamless, that will hopefully help faculty not be nervous about those extra roles that they're going to be taking on. And so that's why the faculty advising work group that's been led by Amy Davis and Pam Solger, and Irene and I have had oversight for, has been so important. The work that they've been doing is they've been meeting with faculty, both career and transfer faculty, and CT program faculty, to say, what kind of advising are you doing for your program? Now let's put into practice using this technological tool to mirror the practices you're already doing so that it isn't considered one more thing that faculty feel is an onus that's being put on them when it's actually part of the role. So those are some of the pieces that we're working on, but the plan is fall. Right. Right. Yes, absolutely. Okay, we will hit you up for those names.
I just wanted to quickly add that currently we have 22 faculty that are currently in the pilot this fall. And so another important piece is that this is part of the faculty's role. It is part of their job. It is part of their contract for them to advise with students. We also know that, you know, we in student affairs, we may see the student once a semester. Sometimes even at that point, we don't see them every semester. So really the engagement happens with the faculty member. If the faculty member is able to help them answer questions or help refer them to the appropriate individual, then that really is the ideal model for us to be in. So it's something that we're moving towards. The training for the faculty will happen in the spring, full implementation in the fall, and PIMA Connection will be an important piece of technology that we will utilize in that.
It's been great to see things move along. Thank you, all three of you. As you know, we're gearing up for Amazon Local with Career Choice and another local employer with national footprint, as Michael indicated, so that we can become, in essence, our own version of Pearson with no Pearson. So it seems that the success of Pearson with the numbers that Michael talked about was the intentionality behind the embedded student success coaches in the online version. And then equally, the U of A component, there was a lot of intentionality on their part with respect to developing that. Do you, kind of put you on the spot, I know, but in order to make some of these partnerships work, to the success concerns that Nina and others have brought up, and her questions with Michael, are we at a point where we can expand our existing student services infrastructure to touch those employer Pearson-like models ourselves, or are we still dependent wholly on a third-party intervention model?
That's a good question, Ian. Actually, yesterday morning, David and I met with the Chancellor, with Dolores, and with Tom to talk about some of our existing positions, because again, we can't look at adding additional positions, but actually repurposing positions. So we're looking at our own infrastructure now, and how can we use existing employees to help with those pieces, to help, help guide the student to be successful, so that when they do have a question, instead of, oh, well, who do I call, where do I go, it's that easy go-to. I just need to click here or call this individual or email this individual, and that service or that help and information and support will be there for them. So yes, we currently are looking at that.
Thank you, Irene, David, and Suzanne. I wish we had more time for questions, but we have to keep moving along. I'm very impressed with the work that they've done since July 1st. So they've done an incredible amount of work in student affairs. So thank you. And next we have Lisa Brosky to talk to us about marketing and outreach.
Thank you. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to do a quick overview of what we have going on now, but I really want to spend some time on where we're going with marketing. But I want to start with, so there's a circus tent on this opening slide. So there's a handy way of that people have used in the past to help explain what marketing is. So basically, it goes this way. If the circus is coming to town and you paint a sign saying, "Circus coming to the fairground on Saturday," that's advertising. If you put a sign on an elephant and walk it into town, that's promotion. If the elephant walks through the mayor's flower bed, that's publicity, good or bad. And if you get the mayor to laugh about it, that's public relations. If the town citizens go to the circus, you show them the many entertainment booths, explain how much fun they'll have spending money at the booths, answer their questions, and ultimately they spend a lot of money at the circus, that's sales. You put it all together, and that's marketing. So it's easy to think of marketing. Most people tend to think that it's just advertising. Obviously, it's much more. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we market our circus. We obviously, I was waiting for some giggles. So obviously, we really see ourselves impacting strategic directions 1, improving student success, and strategic direction 2, enriching the community through engagement. Of course, we also see us impacting our overall goal, to achieve 60 Pima County. So let's see. Currently, when we think of advertising, we use a lot of different forms. We use all the traditional forms: print, radio, TV sometimes. TV is expensive, but we have done it. Outdoor, digital, and social media, which is where we're spending most of our time, and what I'm going to talk to you more about at the end here. And then over-the-top media, so all those people who have pulled the plug on cable, you know, they're at Hulu, they're at Netflix. It tends to be our demographic, and so we're spending a lot of time in that space as well. For the last several years, we've used a campaign called Think Smart. This campaign has won a lot of awards and in a lot of ways has been very effective for us. Obviously, this is going to be replaced as we go into our rebranding, which I'll touch on as well. We tend to cluster our advertising around enrollment periods simply because that's what we have the budget to do. So when we advertise on TV and radio, our advertising tends to be very general awareness. Digital, again, why we like it so much is because we can really target down. So, you know, we can target men, women, age group, interests. So, you know, if we're looking for somebody who's really interested in working in careers with their hands, you know, that we could start to target those kind of interests. And I'll tell you in a minute a little bit more about what we're going to be and what we're going to start doing with digital. So, you know, one of the things digital has also let us do is that, I just absolutely lost my train of thought. I'll come back to it. I'll think of it in a minute. So right now, just so you know, some of the things we have going on, we've got obviously some digital going on. We also have some radio going on. So when we do radio, we hit a wide range. We do a lot of warrior radio, which is reaching our veteran students. We work with iHeart, which has both talk and music. We use Lotus, which has Spanish language stations, La Caliente and La Buena. We do a little bit of print. We don't do a lot of print anymore because our target audience really isn't there. But we also feel like we need to be in that space. You know, it's always that top of mind awareness opportunities. And let's see, I think I had, yeah, let me back up. So while most of our advertising is designed to drive enrollment, we do keep that general awareness advertising out there. So, and there's a lot of reasons, you know, I wish we had the money to do more, where we could just be out there all the time, because those are some opportunities that we miss. You know, adult students, we know from research, they make that decision in the moment. So they've gotten divorced, they've lost their job, they see an opportunity for a promotion. You know, they they tend to gravitate to those schools that are in their space, which is why you'll see a lot of the private universities spending up to 6% of their operating funds on marketing. So, and we probably spend 0.000, well, you get the idea. So it's really important. It's also important, just like Ian was talking about a little bit, when he starts to engage as employers and engage potential partners, they want to see us in that community. They want to see our advertising. And, same thing with donors when we get to that point. Okay, so let's see, did I mention? Yeah, I'll come back to it. Okay. So one of the things we did last year, we developed something that we're calling a brochure website. And so this is our Think Smart page. So, our current website is not as user-friendly as we would like it to be. It's certainly not directed to potential students, which is where we're going to be going with a new website. PCC Think Smart kind of helped change that for us, and the numbers have just been phenomenal. Since it was created, it's had more than 25,000 users. We've had 39,000 page views. There's a whole bunch of stats here I could share. The most important thing, though, is that people are coming to the site and then they're continuing to engage in the process. So this is just almost like a shell, and it clicks through to pima.edu, and we can measure where people are on those pages. So we know they're clicking through to pima.edu. We know they're asking for more information. So some other things we do that are beyond advertising when we start to look at the idea of promotions. So we look at something like PCC FastPass, and it had a very practical application because we were able to engage with students on those days. We think of that as promotion. We create an event and invite people to come. Another thing, some home team marketing is something we do with basketball programs at area high schools, and so they put a banner up. We get to go do a presentation, and part of the advertising fee goes back to the college in the form of a donation, which is a real opportunity for us to engage in the high schools. Hashtag Pima.grad. This is an award-winning social media campaign that we did around all of our graduations, just as a way to extend our outreach a little bit. And then other events that we engage with, that we help support, like the fashion show, which last year sold out. The Fox Theater was really phenomenal. It's going to be a 5-day event this year, so try to come. Public relations is a big deal. Again, it goes back to what we're doing with news media. And I cut the slide that had all the great headlines we are getting now, but we're getting some really phenomenal headlines, which is great. And then all the special events. We've had opportunities with Caterpillar and our Demolition Day that's really gotten us some good publicity, as well as through social media and other outreach. We've had partnerships like the Hands Only CPR with the American Heart Association. We're really developing a partnership with them that you'll be hearing more about. But they came on our campus to do this training. And then, of course, our sales arm, which is our recruiters. So I know a lot of people call the recruiters outreach. We do not. We call them recruiters. And that's because a lot of people are doing outreach. They're certainly doing outreach, but so is Regina, so is Ian. A lot of faculty are. So when we think of what we do, so first of all, they're in about 60 area high schools. Some they engaged more than others. It really just depends on the high school and their level of involvement with us. But they also cover and create about 100 events a year. This is a 5-person team. So in addition, so the events that we tend to either create or go to tend to be education focused. So these are not the people that are going to be sitting at a booth at, say, the Tucson Festival of Books. They're going to be at events where we can get those applications coming in, and we'll have other volunteers to do the other festivals. And then, of course, they handle, day-to-day requests and meet with families and students. So quickly, so I want to tell you, and then we do a lot of other things. I was going to share with you some of our publications. So, of course, we do Career Focus twice a year. We do a registration guide twice a year. The foundation supports us with ads in the Arizona Daily Star. Paul works with the chancellor to do a quarterly newsletter. So we've got a lot of information going out there all the time. So one of the things that I'm really excited about, and so I think you saw where David's number about the number of applications, and that's phenomenal. The extent of what marketing and recruiting can do is to get students to application, so you can see the work that needs to go beyond that. We are doing a good job there, but there's a lot of other things to consider. So we talked to a lady, we're hoping to engage with them to do some more digital marketing. And so we mentioned that we think our growth opportunity is that adult market. The very first thing she said, she didn't even pause and take a breath, was, are you guys set up to handle adult students? You know, are your classes at the times they need, are they structured the way adult students need? Because she says, we can drive traffic to application, but you got to get them past application. And so that it was really one of those pause moments that, okay, she does know this business. So quickly, I want to talk to you a little bit about where digital is going. So there's oodles of cool things that we're going to be able to do with digital. So David mentioned some of the outreach things that we're going to be doing with current students. We're going to tag along, and we're going to what we're calling geofence our campuses. And students will get the same message. So when they're sitting around campus, that message is going to pop up on their phone while they're on campus to register now. We get that new QNAMI system set up. They'll get the ad. They'll click the ad. They can sign up right there to get in line to see the advisor, which is pretty cool. We're going to be geo-targeting the University of Arizona, essentially trying to reach those students that maybe the U of A isn't a good fit right now. Let's come back, try Pima, go back to U of A. Other opportunities, we have the ability to target, say, hospitals to try to recruit students who are employees who are not clinical into clinical positions. Lots of opportunities there. The most exciting thing is what we can do with digital is because we can track everything. So we have the ability now, if somebody clicks on one of our digital ads and then shows up on campus, we know who they are. Then we also have the ability, if they click on one of their ads, we can capture their home address and send them a postcard. So then we're going to start to look, as we start to collect that data, we're going to start to look at, okay, if somebody clicks on our digital ad, and then they ask for information, and then they show up on campus, how likely are they to enroll? If we can start to track some of those trends, then we're really going to be able to target those students more. And just to close, I'm not going to go into rebranding because, I will go into rebranding a little bit because most of you saw the presentation the other day about why we're doing it and what branding is going to do for us. But I should have pretty much the final version of it on Friday. And then we'll have to start a rollout plan. Obviously, a part of that rollout plan is development of the new website. Don't know, I don't have a timeline on that yet, but I will soon. Obviously, we're trying to be as aggressive about that as we possibly can. Another part about rebranding is that we're going to be working with Michael and Ian because we want their programs to look like the new brand. And then you'll start to see it. We're going to roll it out internally first and then externally next. And then hopefully this time next year, all of our PowerPoints will look exactly alike and we'll all use the proper logo. No comment on those who use the wrong logo today. So that we'll start to have some consistency in our messaging and common looks and feels. And that's going to help extend our reach where advertising can't, consistency will. Okay, questions? Good? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And for our final presentation, we have Bruce Moses, who will be talking to us about the top 10 HLC questions. And Bruce must be a bit tired after yesterday, right? Exhausted, I bet.
So I'm just waiting for Carissa to load my 40 slides. You don't have my slides, Carissa? Just kidding. Okay, so it's very hard to kind of determine what will be asked of individuals. When HLC peer reviewers come, we are in a very unique situation that we're having a comprehensive evaluation visit on December 3rd and 4th, and then we're going to have multi-campus visits on 5th and 6th at downtown community and Northwest campus. So I recently actually did a campus evaluation visit at an institution up in Phoenix for the HLC a couple months ago. And after the day and a half visit, the camp, I tallied every question that we asked, myself and my fellow peer reviewer, and it was a total of 39 questions that we asked over the course of a day and a half. And so we have covered the top 10 questions. Dolores, I think, sent these out, the EOT sent this out. And one of the things when I looked at those questions is, we gave some very good, comprehensive responses to those questions. But those responses, our colleagues and the people who report to us, they're not going to be able to give those type of responses. So one of the things that we need to do is take a look at those questions, and we need to reduce down our responses. Some of our responses were 7 to 8 paragraphs long. So who remembers the show Name That Tune? I can name that tune and you know, in three notes. We need to give our institution the Name That Tune version and our constituents of responses to some of these questions. Because when we go out and do these road shows, we can't take 7 and 8 paragraph responses to these folks and think that they're gonna be able to give some type of comprehensive, articulate answer that we have sat down in our offices and typed up over the course of a day or two. So I want to try this, and I want to do a little practice here. So if I ask the question of the audience, what is PIMA's top 5 strategic priorities? What would you say? Student success, achieve 60 Arizona.
Continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement. Community engagement. Access. That's 5. What would you think? I'm going to put somebody on the spot here. Dolores, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you asked Julian, or if you asked me what was our top 5 priorities, what would you expect us to say? Thank you, that's what I would say it. We have to be on the same page, folks. That's what I'm talking about here. Dolores has heard me say that multiple times, and we talk about that a lot in our area. Because when you look at everything that was presented today, in my opinion, if we led off and the chancellor said, you know, in an opening meeting with the peer reviewers, you know, we have some challenges. Definitely one of the things that we know is going to come up is enrollment decline. We know that expenditure limitations is going to come up. So when we look at this across the board, you know, in my opinion, and this is one of the things that we've talked about in our office, is that the only way to turn this around is to increase enrollment. We know enrollment is the common denominator, persistence and retention and completion is the common denominator to solving our issues. I'm not saying that that's the only answer or the right answer, but I think that is one of the major answers, what Dolores just said, in regards to when you say, what are the strategic priorities of this college? Irene's entire presentation, to me, is surrounding persistence, retention, completion, and improving enrollment. So I think that's one of the things, we have to get on the same page of what we think now, everyone doesn't have to say exactly what Dolores said. But I would come out of the gate, and I could be wrong, but the first thing out of my mouth is going to be enrollment. increasing enrollment is our #1 strategic priority. That would be my response, and then I would probably go into to some of the other things that Dolores talked about. So I think I don't have, again, I'm not saying that I have the answers or Dolores has all the answers, but I think we all as a leadership team, what we go out and communicate to our audiences at these road shows has to be very consistent. So I'm going to ask that our leadership decide what are our top 5 strategic priorities, and we go out and share that at the road show. I think we need to document what we consider as our top 5 strategic priorities. So I'm gonna try this again. So one of the things that, I'm gonna get my iPad up. One of the questions we have is, this is one of the top 10, and Lamada and David Arellano cannot respond to this question. How does the college plan to improve on its graduation rates, persistence, retention, and overall student success? Implementation of guided pathways. That's on here, Michael. That's one of the ways. What else? Strategic advising. Faculty advising. That's on here, Mark. Scheduling. Okay. I think that would be part of the guided pathways piece here. Ian? Program relevance and alignment, okay. We did very well with that one. That's definitely on here. I encourage you to look at these. I think Dolores and folks have disseminated these out. I encourage you to look at the top 10. So I'm gonna go wild card now, and I'm gonna ask some questions that are not the top 10 questions. And I want to see what our responses are going to be. What is PCC's greatest strength? This will be asked of staff and faculty. What is our greatest strength? There's no answers to these, Hector. This is just a question being thrown out. I'm going to ask the Chancellor. Chancellor, what is our greatest strength?
So I'm going to answer it this way. How did we accomplish what you all heard today? How did we do that?
With people.
What did Kate just say? Say it loud. Say what you just said. Our people.
People.
People is our greatest strength, right? Our faculty, our staff, administration. We are our greatest strength, but we're also our greatest enemy, too. But I think what you've seen is that is churn.
That is the third question that, when I went on this recent visit, that was the third question that my colleague asked, was what was the college's greatest strength? Here's the first question that I asked. How would you describe the relationship between faculty and administration? What works and what needs to be improved on? That question will be asked. I guarantee you.
Well, I think one of the things that have worked to improve the relationship between the faculty and administration is the new dean structure. Because no longer do you have a math faculty at one campus getting a different answer from their dean than a math faculty at another campus about what they can and can't do. Or writing. But also, there's a stronger relationship that's built there.
I couldn't hear everything Nina said.
I know.
Could you get up, Nina? I think Nina that's a good response, Nina.
Okay, what I said is one of the things that has improved the relationship between the faculty and the administration is the new dean structure, where we now have disciplinary deans instead of campus-based deans. I think it has improved the consistency of information flow to the faculty.
Suzanne, you're going to have to come up here. We're not going to be able to hear you. Anybody else? Oh, I like that.
Go.
Holding hands.
I'm going to tag team onto Nina's answer and say the reorg of the department head structure and the discipline coordinator structure, it strengthened, I believe, the relationships between the deans and the faculty leadership. It empowered the heads to understand, I think, from an administrative perspective, how we carry out the initiatives of the college. And I would argue that hopefully gave them some insights as to the challenges.
I'm going to tag on to what Nina and Suzanne said. I think individuals have great relationships between administration and faculty members, but structurally, we've pitted ourselves against each other in terms of the political groups that we've allowed to exist and the way we've allowed them to interact.
Bill?
One thing I would add is I think the
Please.
engagement. I think there's more engagement now with faculty and leadership, especially when we see that at my side of the house. We see that happen more so now than we've seen it in the past. So I think the level of engagement, even though maybe it's not we're not always on the same page, but at least we're engaged with each other, talking about some of these tough things and tough decisions.
Bill said the level of engagement has increased between faculty and administration, and there's more ongoing and active engagement between the two groups. There is no right or wrong answer necessarily, but I want you guys to know one thing as a peer reviewer. I don't want you to avoid the issues. You need to come out from the beginning and say, there has been a strained relationship between the faculty and administration in regards to decision making. We need to own that. Not to say that it's a bad thing, but we need to own it. We can't avoid it because it's gonna come up when they ask faculty in their group, they're gonna say, we're not involved with the decision-making process. So if they hear that for the first time from faculty, they need to hear it from us as administration so they can understand that, yeah, they're owning it. Peer reviewers work in organizations just like we do. There's nothing, this is not gonna be anything new to them. But if we avoid it, it seems like we're hiding it because the faculty are definitely gonna bring it up and staff are gonna bring it up. So we need to just say it right up front, and then we need to talk about the fact that what has improved, what we've done to help improve those relationships is put into place the things Nina said in regards to the structures for deans, the department chair structures in that. So now you're saying, here's the improvement efforts that we put in place to try to combat some of that potential conflict between administration and faculty. So don't run away from the elephant in the room. The other thing is, the next question I have is, what are the mechanisms by which our constituency groups participate in shared governance? Jeff, you can't talk on this one. What are the mechanisms by which our constituency groups participate in shared governance? Great answers, great answers. What is our definition of shared governance? What is the institutional definition of shared governance? David said input from constituency groups on decision making.
We have a very nebulous definition in our ACC, BP, and AP that almost sounds evasive, that it really doesn't define it, and then trying to translate that nebulous definition into action. I mean, part of the problem is I think the ACC has spent its entire existence trying to figure out what the ACC is and what it does. So in part, that might be due to the fact that we really haven't defined governance at the institution. And if we have, we've given a really nebulous definition.
Anybody else? Raj.
Equal opportunity in shaping of the institution.
Equal opportunity in shaping the institution. Again, I don't believe there's a right or wrong answer, but I love Michael's answers because you know why? Michael can point to documented evidence of something in writing, whether we honor it or not, whether we actualize it or not, he can point to something that's in documentation, and I think his answer was very appropriate. It's nebulous. We may not be able to demonstrate that we follow it, but then everybody else's answers contribute to it too, because it's really about, do we avail all constituents in this institution to the opportunity to have input and feedback on what we do as a college? No, we do not take all your recommendations. No, we do not implement everything you want us to. But do you have the opportunity, and are you availed to those opportunities to participate and have feedback and input? Yes, you are, and there's formalized mechanisms and structures that are in place. And maybe one of the things that will come out of this might be, you know what Michael's talking about, we need to take a hard look at the definition of ACC, and we need to streamline it and make it very clear what that means. This question will be asked, and we will get 50 different answers from multiple constituencies in the organization. But I think the first thing is, from us, we need to be able to point to, like Michael said, that there is something documented. And then what we do is avail constituents to opportunities to have that input and feedback. Again, no right or wrong answers. I think everything you guys said, it definitely would be receptive. But you can be sure that we're going to get different responses from the different constituency groups about whether or not we actually avail them to those opportunities, or because I think they have a different definition of what shared governance may be. Anybody have any questions at this point? Here's another question. How effectively do we orient new employees to our institutional culture, issues, duties, and responsibilities? And this, I'm gonna tell you right now, as a peer reviewer, I don't look at HR when I ask this question. I look at the department level and see, when a new person comes into the department, how do we onboard them to ensure that they have the tools, the policies, the procedures, and mechanisms in place to be effective in their jobs? I don't place that entire responsibility on HR, because HR can't orient and onboard somebody to your department. They onboard to the institution. So there's a tiered answer for me. As a peer reviewer, I'm looking for a two-tiered answer here. I'm looking for, here's what we do at the institution level. Hey, everybody, first 3 days, you're gonna sit in that room over there and the chancellor's building in that computer room, and you're gonna get inundated for 3 days with orientation. However, when you go out to the unit level, what do we do? So that's something that we need to probably improve on. I'm sure there's a lot of places in the college we do that very well, and probably there's a lot of places in the college where we kind of just throw people out in the middle of the fray and say, go for it. So I got a real question that I've been burning to ask. I've been waiting for this day to come. So, we have multiple initiatives going on at this institution. We, as the chancellor pointed out earlier, we have had state support for 4 or 5 years, 4 years, I think. We've had risks. We have 5 years of declining enrollment. Let's say enrollment continues to decline for the next year. What is the college prepared to abandon and give up in order to align themselves with their operational and spending and revenue, and what are we planning to give up? What will we offer up on the table if we had to do some more cuts? What is the process by which we would go through?
We've already started, though, by right-siding ourselves and looking at non-productive programs that we're taking off the offerings. And that's one of the things that we'll have to continue to look at.
So continue to look at non-viable, irrelevant programs through program review, program viability process. What else? Reducing our footprint.
We've already, so the deans have already gone through the process of faculty allocation, and we have the data and awareness of programs that, while beneficial and meeting some standards, in the long run, we will make decisions about whether or not in the bigger picture, those are the ones we should be investing in this community, even though they may be beneficial in a different institution. We have those. We're ready for that.
I believe the institution at leadership level would need to do a prioritization of college-wide initiatives, acknowledge that we can't do it all, but do we have a formal mechanism to do that? I'm not aware of that, and I mean, maybe that's what some of the answer is we're looking for, I don't know.
One way that we should do it is through a single strategic planning process. We have numerous North Stars, numerous directions that we're trying to go, but a big part of strategy is deciding what you're not going to do and sort of saying this is where we're going to focus our efforts instead of trying to be all things to all people and accomplish every initiative. You decide based upon our greatest needs, this is what we need to do. And that should happen through the strategic planning process.
Chancellor, would you like to add anything to this?
So our educational and facilities master plan does define what that is. So the question is, have you all been keeping up with that educational facilities master's plan? Because that defines where we're going to go into the future. If we have to make decisions and you're not in that plan, well, I think you understand the vulnerability there. So that's my first answer. Second answer is, because of some analysis we've done earlier, we have a lot of employees at the college in comparison to other institutions our size. Why do I bring that up? We have a lot of room to just achieve more efficiency with the existing infrastructure that we have. And so really what we've achieved so far has been through those efficiencies. So we have not had to go to some of those more difficult strategic questions that are really defined in that educational facilities master plan. However, with that said, remember on the transfer side of the equation, the gen ed side, we are no longer offering everything at every location. And that was something that came out of that plan. We're still offering the gen eds at all the locations, but not necessarily the 200 level at all the locations. So those would be some of the initial things I would encourage us to be mindful of. Unfortunately, it's hard to talk about this because when you start talking this way, then people get very fearful. But what we've been doing for the last 4 years has been laying the tracks for this very day that we've been facing and we may face into the future. Another example is we're selling off community campus. If the board approves it, the next month, community campus will no longer be in our footprint. If going forward, district office may not be in the portfolio of the college. We're actually looking to move district office. This is all in the plans. So none of this is, what I'm telling you is, you may think it's new, but it's not new stuff, okay? So I think the key in all of this, Bruce, is everyone needs to familiarize themselves with that educational facilities master plan. It is the roadmap. It is what you're talking about, Michael. It's already there.
And that is, Bill.
I just wanted to add one thing to kind of tie to what Lee's saying is that, you know, as you know, I guess if we did lose enrollment, if we lost more enrollment, then we all already know, we've been talking about this long enough to know that when we lose 1,000 students, what that equates to in cost. And so I think what we would have to do is, depending on whether we lose more students or not, that'll determine the amount. And so you take a campus offline, that's a lot of money. I mean, I think when you look at everything from what it takes for us to operate it, the campus to operate it, Dave's team to manage it, you're talking, you know, $15, $20 million to manage a campus. So I think that we have to be bold in our thought process when it relates to this stuff, and we can't lose sight of where we are today, because we're not done. This isn't over. Until enrollment starts peaking and going back up, and we've built some of these new facilities and bring more students or a different kind of student to Pima, we don't get, in other words, we don't get to take our eye off this ball. We have to continuously be monitoring this, because we're not out of the hot water yet. So I just want to say that.
I want to say a lot of the things that we're talking about are all related to each other, and they're all connected. Pushing things down to the department level allows us to look at our programs and services and think about things as well, why am I here? What am I producing? The institution is providing support and resources for different areas. Each of our areas are supposed to be providing some kind of support for our students, for our community. There is some output for our area. We don't have a return on investment necessarily dollar-wise, but we have a return on investment for the work that we're doing by what we're accomplishing compared to our resources. And it may be in the long term a place that is giving moderate return, but uses very little resources, is going to be able to be successful going forward because it aligns with what we need to do. Whereas other areas that are giving a moderate return but consume a huge amount of resources, then that becomes a question. This is the conversation I was just having with our new athletic director. The fact that we accomplish great things with our athletics program. Our athletics program is very successful. We impact students' lives. We make a lot of difference for individuals. But the question is, at what cost? What's the return on investment for that program when you have to compare it to other places in the institution? And so what we're working on there is, how can I get that benefit, but somehow reduce the cost to provide the benefit for our students and our community? And the way that that happens is, I need the athletics people to understand that this is part of my role. The chancellor's not going to do it. Dr. Phillips is not going to do it. I'm the athletics department, and I have to take some of that responsibility. And that's the same thing. If I work in facilities, if I work in the business office, What am I producing of benefit to the institution and at what cost? And I should always be trying to improve that.
So the chancellor made a very good point, and this is one of the things I was trying to get at with that series of questions, and Michael hit on it as well too. One of the things that we have repeatedly received feedback on from the HLC is we plan and then we don't follow our plan. We go off and do something different. Our resources appear as they're being used in a different way, in a different direction. And so the points that Michael made and the chancellor made, to me, are very important, and I think we need to take that away today. With some of these questions, if we're asked these questions and we share responses to these questions to our constituencies, we need to be able to point to documented information that we have developed. The first thing Chancellor said was, we have an ed and facility master plan that lays all these things out. Once again, that's documentation that says, here's what you said you were gonna do over the next 10 plus years, PIMA. Why are you talking about something that's not in this documentation? Same thing with Michael's comment regarding what we have in ACC documentation about shared governance. And I think we need to make sure that we're pointing to those things that we have documented. Remember, this is a big thing that we've worked on at the college for years, is making sure that we had documented evidence and documentation to support what we're saying. So I think our responses have to be grounded in what have we documented and said that we're gonna do. The strategic plan is a document. The ed and facilities master plan. So if we're looking at, hey, what are we gonna get out of, what we shouldn't be doing, we need to be looking at those plans and saying, we've planned this for ourselves. What have we committed to already for the next 12 to 24 months? We've already jumped into that. There's no way of pulling that back. Now let's look at what we plan for 5 years out, and maybe we start to look at those things and say, no, maybe we just put some of those things to the side.
Let me build off. How did I start the day out for us? Started out with the mission, right? So the answer you should always be thinking about is, how does it springboard off the mission? And then I moved into what? Planning. And then what did we do? We showed you today what we've done to execute on the planning. So think about your answers in that context. We do have a shared governance model here. I'm not saying it's optimal, but we did put in place that all-college council. There is documents that were created for that purpose. Now, it's got work to still, but I'll tell you, every place I've been, we constantly had to work on shared governance. It was never perfect. People would always argue about its effectiveness, but everyone knew that there was a group that brought everybody together to discuss college-wide issues as a way to get input from employees. And then there's variations on that. So it's there. So to say it's not there is not being, it more reflects on your lack of knowledge than it does on what the institution's been doing. So that's why I really encourage all of us to go back and read some of these key documents. And if necessary, go back and read some of the documents we've already submitted in the past, because some of the answers are in those documents, as well as this one we just submitted. All of you should familiarize yourselves with the assurance argument. A lot of what you heard today is really tied to that assurance argument. And so we just brought to the surface some of the components, can't bring everything. And then it's really for you to follow up with your reading and then talk to your people, help to make it so that it's easy for them to understand. We can do so much at the top level, but it's on the ground where it all happens. It doesn't happen from my office or the provost's office or the president's office. It happens from all of your offices because we built the plans. And I'll say one last thing that Bruce just referenced. In the last visit they made, they said to me, PIMA is great at planning, but very poor at execution. What they finally noticed is PIMA is starting to execute on its plans. So now what they're going to be looking at is how much further have you taken that planning. And what more have you done? And we've shown some of that today. So we got a lot to be proud of. So don't hesitate, right? But start from thinking about it from the mission standpoint and then cascade it down. So what are our priorities, right? The priorities flow from that mission. And we can break it down, we can make it clearer, right? But all of you did touch on key parts of those priorities, and we might just say it differently. I probably would have answered slightly different than what Dolores did. I would have said, first of all, building off the strategic plan as an example, right? Student success, community engagement, and institutional effectiveness. As part of that, we're focused on enrollment, on persistence, retention, and completion. So really, we're saying the same thing. But if we can all roll that off our tongues a lot easier, right? I think this sets the stage, but it all builds off of that mission. So please don't forget that. You know the answers. Just trust yourselves in being able to respond to it.
And the chancellor is absolutely right. Please read the assurance argument, because yes.
Is the final version online somewhere?
It's not online yet. I was talking to Louise earlier. She is, we built it in the HLC assurance system. Now what we have to do is, we don't have to completely build it outside the system, but the links we have to build and hide those out somewhere within our system. And so it's going to take her a few days to do that, about a week, she told me. And then we're going to share that entire version out to the entire college community. So we'll have at least 2 or 3 weeks to go review this before the reviewers come. But the responses to planning and what's our strategic, read Criterion 5, it'll tell you about what's our resources, how we plan to use those resources, and how we plan to measure how we're doing those things. Shared governance is laid out there. You guys hit the home run on that one. Every one of those mechanisms is listed in that plan. ACC, AERC, Faculty Senate, Staff Council, PCCA, all of them are listed in there, and it tells how those folks interact in the process of shared governance. But it's all in the insurance argument. All the questions I asked, there's responses that you can glean from the insurance argument. We're not going to use the same language. We're not going to be robots and say the exact same words, but we're going to be consistent, because we all can come look at that plan and articulate those responses in some kind of way based off of what we have in the assurance argument. So that's what I encourage you guys to be prepared for that. David Dore is going to be raked over the coals. This guy has to host 3 campus evaluation visits, 3 different locations, and participate in the comprehensive evaluation visit. He's going to need a vacation day come Friday, December. So, I mean, he's got to be on it, really, because he's going to be setting the tone for him and his administration at each one of the campuses. So they're going to be setting the tone for the day. At downtown, him, Lamada, and Greg Wilson and all those folks are going to set the tone. Then when they go over to community, Regina, Ian, all the VPs over there, they're going to be setting the tone for community. And then he's got to go to Northwest the next day. So he's got to be on his game, because they're going to be looking for consistency from the comprehensive evaluation visit that took place on the 3rd and 4th to what this reviewer is hearing on the 5th and 6th at those 3 campuses. So, it's a challenge. I've never seen this much of hands-on with the HLC in my career. Literally, I've never seen 4 days of them being, integrated into your college. And so this is challenging. It's doable, absolutely, but I think it's going to be very important that we disseminate out. So when we go on these road shows, I think one of the things that I asked Dolores, we went to staff council, and Dolores went to faculty senate. And one of the things we asked her to do, and they're going to give this to us by tomorrow, I think at 3 o'clock, I think is the deadline. I asked staff council to give me their top 5 questions that they wanted answered to from the administration that relates to our assurance argument. And Dolores asked the Senate to do the exact same thing. When we get those questions, we're going to disseminate those questions out to all of you folks. So then when we go on these roads, we got to turn this around quickly too, because I think the first road show is Thursday of this week. So we got to turn that around quickly, but we need to think about those responses to those questions. One of the things that we're trying to do with this opportunity is that, you know, folks in the organization, some of them are confused about things. Some are confused about what our priorities might be. There might be confusion about certain initiatives. We want to address that. They may not like everything we say, but we want to address that before the reviewers come. So at least they've had an opportunity to hear from us as the administration and get responses to some of their questions. But also in the roadshow, we're going to be sharing facts with them. Some of the same things that we talked about here today, some of the successes that we've talked about, and, you know, not make this appear as this visit is, oh, we get an opportunity to, to rear our ugly heads. We want to share with them our successes, share with them fact, answer some of their questions, and kind of let them get it out their system before the reviewers come. People are going to be people. As a reviewer, that's what they're going to do. But reviewers can navigate this. You know, they know the difference between a systemic issue and somebody who's just got an axe to grind. And I don't see that we have any systemic issues in this college that rise to the occasion of the HLC needs to come in and we're violating the criteria accreditation in some kind of way or anything along those lines. We may have some slight confusion about things or what's going on, but we can clear that up in the next 4 weeks by availing ourselves to these folks and having them have an opportunity to interact with us, all of these. So I'm asking that all the leaderships, particularly the ELT, be able to show up to as many of these roadshow events as possible. They don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you folks. I interact with a lot of folks, so they don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you folks in regards to, all of you folks in regards to what's going on in the college, answering some of their questions, ensuring their futures, you know, as employees and what's to come. And I think that's important. Sorry, David, but yeah, you are going to get raked over the coals. You can handle it. Are there any questions, any things that I can answer? Everybody's ready to go home, I know. Chancellor, Dolores, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bruce. That really sets the tone of the HLC visit, what we need to do to prepare ourselves and our staff. So although we've already submitted the HLC documents, the assurance argument, the campus visit reports, and the federal compliance report, we still have a lot of work to do. For example, what Bruce said about the road shows, sharing all that information with your respective staff and your units, making sure everybody is well aware of what the work has been done and what we're continuing to do. Reading the assurance argument, reviewing all the various plans, the strategic plan, the strategic enrollment management plan, the diversity plan, the education master, the facilities master plans, all of those. We need to review those. We need to review the criteria, the HLC criteria, not just us, but everybody in your units. We need to know how the criteria, what is our role in the criteria? Because we all participate in that. So be aware of that, study it, because the criteria belongs to all of us. Just like enrollment belongs to all of us, so does all the criteria for the Higher Learning Commission. That's why we're here at Pima Community College. So this has been a really informative day. We've shared a lot of positive impacts that we've had. I like the term return of impact instead of return of investment. Thank you very much for sharing all of the challenges and how you transformed them into accomplishments. But before we leave, I'd like to copy what Jeff did with his Think, Pair, Share, Table Share. I have a question for you, so please stand up. Everybody stand up. This will be the last thing. So reflect. I'll give you 30 seconds to reflect by yourselves, and then you'll get with a partner, share your answer to the question I'm about to ask, and then share with your table and figure out one answer that you can report out, okay? So the question is, what have you learned today, and what would you like to share with your respective units? If you had to choose one thing, what would you like to share what you learned today with your respective units? Okay, so think about it individually first. And when you're ready, sit down and share with a partner. When you've shared with your partner, please share with the table.
I can't get them to sit down, but they're done.
Okay, you guys are ready? Okay. You guys are ready?
Yeah, Ted's got it. Ted's got it.
Okay.
Ted's in.
You ready? 30 seconds. Okay, who's going to share? Who's going to share? Michael?
I'll tell you in a second. Summarize what we said.
All of what we said. We answered the questions. Word. Summarize everything.
You guys are ready? Ready?
Huh?
Yeah, you ready? Who's going to share?
Credit in the Word department by only using one last time, maybe.
Oh, who's sharing?
But the tricky thing with the priorities.
All right, we're going to start sharing, and we'll start up here up front with Michael Tolino. So go ahead and share. What's your takeaway?
We had some takeaways around the positive initiatives that have been occurring in the college, specifically the data that shows we've trended upwards. But equally, we are left with a bit of ambiguity in terms of the strategies and the planning that we are trying to make sense of. Although the outcome was trust ourselves. We've been a part of this. So answer with our heart and our head, I suppose.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Can you pass it to Wafa? And I'm going to go over here to Ted. Ted?
I'm going to let Joyce speak.
So ours was a combination of read the plans. Today was all about getting on the same page, and if we all read all of the plans, we'll be on the same page, and excited that our industry and community partners are also on that same page.
So our discussion was around, and I think what was demonstrated today was there's lots of positive things happening, and that is a great way to lead when discussing this with the HLC, and also be able to talk about the things that aren't going so well in a way that all of that's being dealt with, all of that's moving in a positive direction. So, tell the truth and talk about all the good things we're doing.
I think for us it was all the positive work that's been done around the college and just making us more aware of it, and also to do some homework and read up on the plan.
Jim?
For us, it's be honest, remember the planning, but also remember all the positive accomplishments we've made against our plans, because we really have, and we need to be proud about that.
Ours was that it was good to get everybody in one location so that everybody heard the same message. We got the same sort of baseline presentation. I think it was great that it was so data informed. Everybody had metrics and data that told us what we were doing well and identified where we still need to make improvements.
David?
So at our table, we talked about that frontline staff definitely need to know the mission fulfillment framework. In addition, the top 5 strategic priorities.
Okay, hold on, Dave.
We want 2 terms.
That's not even funny. So I said, new college, new culture, new day, one college.
Okay, Dave.
So the learning is, and the picking up is how many overwhelmingly positive things and accomplishments you all have done in the last number of years, focused on student success, on students and the community, and then believing in ourselves. I mean, I've said to other people, this isn't what our table talked about. I'm going to just opine here. We are our worst critics. We have been through a lot, and those who have been here have a tendency to go, oh, well, we don't do that well, and we don't do that well, and we're not perfect here. We have accomplished an enormous amount. We have good direction. We know where we're going, and we're making great progress on that, and we need to be proud of what we've done.
I totally agree. Okay, Jan?
I think we had the consensus that we need to reread the plans and to extend that information down to the people that we supervise and who serve in our units. And I think, especially in PEMA Online, we need to remind our folks of how they contribute to student success, because they're doing it every day, but they don't always think of it that way, I think, when they're at their desk.
Briefly, a lot of echoing of what was already said, a lot of positive contributions, and like Ted said, a great way to lead. And then also just a tightening up of the message with respect to like Ed Master Plan and why certain things are the way they are and where we're going. We all know it, we can articulate it, but maybe just with our teams, we were talking about the difficulty of making sure that that message is internalized throughout many layers. And that's it.
I think to echo what everybody else has said, but also to make sure we can point to the evidence and be articulate in our response. Because Bruce has mentioned that several times, we can talk about what we're doing, but where can we prove it? So that's something that we need to be able to do, and something that we need to share with our individual teams as well, so they know where to find the evidence. All of the data and the metrics that was shared with us today should also be shared with our teams.
I want to, basically, I don't want to regurgitate what everybody else said, but one of the things I think is important is really the underpinnings of accreditation in this work is continuous improvement. And everything we should do should always have a through line when we respond to any reviewer or in conversation, is that we're always looking to continuously improve. No matter where we are on that metric, we're always trying to continuously improve. And then also, the other thing I think that comes out of this is that we need to do this more often with the other layers of the college. We need to have these type of conversations, not just building up to a accreditation visit, but more of these type of things focusing on us. Maybe all college day is a focus on us as a college and the institution and the people internally in the institution, versus bringing other people in from the outside and all these types of things, that we really take time for ourselves so that we are on the same page and we don't have to wait until the HLC or any other entity is coming before we try to get ourselves on the same page.
Well said, Bruce. Chancellor, do you have final comments?
I'll let you have the final comment, but I just want to build on Bruce's point. So what you're going to see is we're going to do those all college days once each semester. So we'll be doing like a half day in the spring like we did the last spring, but I want to start shifting it to more of these positive things, so we're not just always talking about these things like budget and enrollment, but also seeing the positive pieces that are happening at the institution. So you're going to start seeing more of that happening. And then, so I think we're going to get it lined up in a way that what we're doing here today, we're going to do more of this with ourselves too, because we should be running a mini conference. I mean, when we're out there talking to these other schools, whether it's AACC, ACCT, and the things we're sharing, you'd be amazed. Pima is way ahead of a lot of schools, and you don't realize that when you're just here back at home. So I want us to share our great successes like we did today with more folks. So we'll start to look at how we run mini conferences as well. But that doesn't mean we become Pollyannas. That's not the point, right? It's about that spirit of continuous improvement. There's always room. So I think when you're asked the question and you want to say something, well, critical, frame it in that context of continuous improvement. Continuous improvement is the way to say that critical statement. Yes, we have room to grow. Things worked well. There's some things we need to learn from, but that's part of our continuous improvement effort. So it's okay to frame that truth in that way. So Dolores, thank you all for taking the time to come out. We have a great college, and I hope you all feel the pride in Pima. It's back. Now let's just springboard it even further ahead. Dolores?
Yes. Thank you, Chancellor. So just a final word, because I know it's past 5. Just want to thank all of you. We've been through a lot for the past few years. It's been bumpy, or more than bumpy, as I mentioned before, but we've come a long way, and all of you have been a part of that. And I just want you to know that I highly respect and admire all of you for what you bring to the college with everything you do every day. And even when you're outside of the college, interacting with people, with your neighbors, and talking to them about Pima and representing Pima from the heart. So I want to thank you very much for all of your work and taking this entire day. But I think you'll see the fruits of our efforts today. And I just want to thank you and have a lovely evening. And if you haven't voted, please vote. Thank you.